So I wanted to share some remarks today to really talk about workforce development in San Bernardino County. Most people, when they find out what I do, you're right, it's a normal thing when you meet someone to say, hey, what do you do? And I say, all right. I take that deep breath, I'm like, okay, here I go. Because nobody knows what workforce development is. And so basically, the way that I usually sum it up is my job is to help other people get jobs and also to help businesses find the good qualified employees that they need. And so that's how I sum up what I do. But I say I'm the director of the Workforce Development Department for San Bernardino County. And basically what that means is, as Zeb mentioned in my brief bio, is that I oversee the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act programs for San Bernardino County. We have a very strong and dynamic business services team. And so basically what that means is if you're a business in San Bernardino County, you can work with one of my business services team members and they will connect you with all the services that we have to offer. I will say I'm going to actually start with on-the-job training. That's probably our most popular business service that we offer. And basically what that is, it's a subsidized wage program for new hires. So if a business hires a new employee, there's always going to be some level of onboarding and on-the-job training that's required for that new employee. So through this on-the-job training program, we, the county, will basically contract with you as the employer and say, hey, while you train this new employee on the job for 3 to 6 months, we're going to reimburse you 50% of their wage while you are their training provider. And so it's a great program, and a lot of businesses have been able to take advantage of that program over the years. And so if any of you are interested in that program, feel free to come talk to myself afterwards, or you can talk to Nosy as well. We also, we do customized recruitments. That's a really big issue. That's probably issue number one for businesses everywhere right now is finding qualified employees. We struggle with that even ourselves in the county because just the interesting labor market that we have right now. And so we have the ability to work with a business. If you tell us, hey, I need 10 of these kinds of people, then we will help you do that recruitment. We can pre-screen applications, we can help you host a job fair, we can provide a facility for you, basically whatever you need to help get the employees that you need. That's what we are here to do. And we also do a lot of customized training, so if you have a group of employees, maybe new employees, maybe incumbent employees, that they need a specific kind of training, we can help connect you with a training provider or provide you with resources to make that training happen. Labor market information as well. A lot of businesses come to us and they say, hey, I want to fill this position, but I don't know what a competitive wage to offer is, which is really important right now. And can you help me? Can you provide information? So we can also do that as well. One of our most popular layoff aversion services is it's our human resources hotline. That's a 1-800 number, and it is basically a free service to any business of San Bernardino County. We also have a number of consultants that are on retainer, so if we know a business is struggling with a specific issue, we have the funding to connect them with a consultant that can come in and help do an assessment and identify their needs, and then work with them to develop a strategy to overcome whatever challenges that business is having. And then we also host a number of workshops on a variety of subjects that are important to businesses, and those we hold in person and on Zoom now. That was one of the outcomes that the pandemic created, is we do a lot more via technology now, and so it's allowed us to connect with a lot more people and make our services much more accessible. And then the last thing I'll say, the rapid response, it's the services we provide to a business who is experiencing a layoff, and obviously that's something that we never enjoy having to participate in, but it's an important service that we offer to help those individuals who are impacted by a layoff. So basically, if we do experience a layoff in the county and we receive a warn notice, we can go in and work with that employer and try and provide a seamless experience for those employees who are impacted. One of the best examples I have of that is a manufacturer that we received a warn notice for, and they were laying off about 50 production employees. And because of just the relationships we have, we were also working with another manufacturer in the same city who needed to hire about 50 production employees. And so we were able to make that direct connection and really make a seamless transition for those employees who were being laid off at one employer to get them rehired at this other employer. So it's a great program and service that we offer. All right, and Zeb also mentioned that we operate the America's Job Centers of California. We have 3 primary offices. The closest one to here is in Rancho Cucamonga. We also have one in San Bernardino and one in Victorville. And through these offices, any job seeker in San Bernardino County can go and receive help in getting a job. And we do that through offering a number of services. We assign them to a career coach who can assess them, understand what their skills, abilities, and talents and interests are, and try and connect them with whatever resources they need to get that job. And so it may require training. Maybe they need to go to a vocational program or some other type of training program. Community colleges are great partners of ours, but it could also be a vocational or a technical school or an adult school. Whatever training provider here in our area that offers the programs, it's a benefit to that job seeker. And then we also, sometimes people just need counseling. Sometimes people who are looking for a new job, it might be the first time that they're looking for a new job in 20 years because they were part of a layoff or they're transitioning to a new career. And so, right, we get a little rusty when we haven't been part of a job interview for that long. And so we do interview coaching, we help them improve their resume. We basically do things to make them a more competitive candidate. And then I just want to also just quickly mention that we do have a youth program. We know that a big conversation right now is the future of the workforce and how do we make sure that next generation of workers has the skills that employers have. And so we do have a youth program. We serve about 1,500. We call them Opportunity Youth a year, and those are youth who are not involved in school or in the workforce. And so, meaning that they may be a high school dropout, they're just at home, they're not working, they're not connected in the labor market. So our job is to reconnect them, to help them get their high school diploma, to help them get work experience and whatever services that they need to get those important skills. So I just wanted to give an update on the local labor market. This is a topic that everyone is interested in right now. So you see there our labor force participation rate in San Bernardino County is 60.7%, which is a few percentage points lower than the state as a whole. And that's a big issue because 3% of the labor force of over 1 million people, that's thousands of people. But I will say, and I want to highlight that number there, that our labor force size of 1,020,000 workers strong in San Bernardino County, that's the highest number ever that we've had a labor force in San Bernardino County. And we've been over that 1 million mark for about the last 8 months. So that's it's a huge turning point. It's the largest labor force by sheer number that we've ever had. And so imagine what that number could be if we could increase the participation rate. And then we have our educational attainment rate there at the bottom. They are improving slowly but surely. Our biggest thing that I think is really important that we focus on in San Bernardino County is how do we help increase education attainment. because we know just from an economic development perspective that employers care about, and they look at education attainment rates when they're looking at locations to consider. And so anything that we can do as educators, as government, as businesses, as partners to help and increase those numbers is definitely a good thing. This chart here is just the employment, the unemployment rates for about the last 9 years, and you can see there, and this gray bar that you kind of see shaded in there, that's the beginning of the pandemic. And then this is employment for San Bernardino County, and labor market data always lags about 6 months. So total number of jobs in San Bernardino County was just shy of 900,000 about 6 months ago. So this chart basically shows the percent increases or decreases in the number of jobs in our county. And so you again see how at the beginning of the pandemic, how huge drop in the number of jobs. I also want to just add, because I got the numbers, so in the city of CHINO, just shy of 60,000 jobs, and in the city of Chino Hills, about 16,500 jobs in those cities. And then some more data for you, which I know you won't be able to see, but this is our top 10 industry sectors by employment numbers. And so, of course, it's no surprise to see that the transportation and warehousing sector has the greatest number of employees in our county, with just shy of 140,000 jobs. Followed very shortly behind by healthcare, with just about 138,000 jobs, and then retail with 93,000 jobs. So these are the top three just by sheer number. But that doesn't necessarily mean these are the fastest growing. Now, transportation and warehousing does happen to just be one of the fastest growing, but one thing that's not on this list, and actually the fastest growing sector in our industries currently, is in arts and entertainment. And we're projecting about 3.5% job growth in that sector over the next 5 years. I do just want to lastly say, that we're all about partnerships. Because it takes a village in workforce development. I in workforce development and my team, we can only do so much. And so we really rely on the partnerships we have with organizations like ZEB and the Chino Valley Chamber of Commerce and all of our great chamber partners across the county and the business community as a whole, because we know that without a thriving business community in San Bernardino County, we won't have any jobs for our workers and residents to take. So thank you so much.
So Dr. Peru, tell us a little bit about the State Workforce Development Board and its role in supporting businesses.
So Brad gave a very good overview about what on the ground operationally our federal workforce system does. To give a kind of a broader context, this is established by Congress. And the current legislation that we're operating under is Workforce Innovation Opportunities Act. It's one of the few areas nationally that has authentically genuine bipartisan interest. And you can tell that by some of the design of how it's set up. Brad mentioned about having majority business leaders. That's statutorily required. Like by law, all of the different workforce boards throughout the country at the local and state levels, the majority of the boards, from a governance leadership standpoint, need to be from the business community and led by the business community. And so it's not a typical government system in that sense, the way that it's set up. And each state, through the respective governors, have a board that they appoint that provides governance, oversight, and accountability of how the system is functioning. And so, so it's policy and it's governance in terms of the role. And we're purely serve in a volunteer capacity. At the local level, the workforce boards are volunteers. At the state level, they're volunteers. At the local level, it's appointed typically at the county board of supervisor level, although some large cities like Los Angeles have at the city level also. like I said, at the state, it's the governor's level. So we have 45 local boards in California, and we have over 200 America Job Centers that are being operated. As mentioned before, we have 3 job centers in San Bernardino County specifically. The other thing I want to emphasize is that there's, by design, at the federal level, there's a strong emphasis on local control. So about 80% of all the federal workforce money is controlled at the local level, with local workforce boards, local staff collaborating on that. And so that I think is really important, because that way the local economies, local stakeholders are guiding their own decisions. About 20% is discretionary from the governor and at the state level, beyond, again, being accountable for all of the funds. And I can speak to a little bit later about, how under Governor Newsom's vision, how we've been investing, not just throughout the state, but specifically here in the Inland Empire with respect to that. But that's kind of the overall system. And the board composition itself, it's majority led by business. We also have 4 state legislators. Those are the only people that are not appointed by the governor. They're appointed by the respective leadership of the Senate and the Assembly. We have the state superintendent. So education is a really important component of this. Tony Thurman sits on it, as well as the chancellor of the California Community Colleges. So there's an education business component to it. So that's the overview.
Okay, perfect. And then when we're talking about holistically across the state, what are the biggest issues facing our businesses right now?
So the number one issue that, and maybe it's a function because of the role that I'm in, but the main thing that my understanding that businesses cite, generally speaking, is workforce. People are having trouble finding workers, and then the key is not just finding employees, but skilled employees that can perform to the expectations of the business community. And so, as you can imagine, going through the pandemic, there was a huge disruption, and the state's focus on responding to that was retraining people in sectors that were impacted, such as hospitality and things of that nature, and then shifting them to areas of demand where we had related to healthcare, obviously, particularly, and a variety of other sectors like groceries and food and so forth. And so we've set up what we called high road training partnerships. They're sector basis on a regional area. So for everything we did here, it was based on an Inland Empire 2-county effort. But that really was kind of the key focus. Since the pandemic has started shifting, as all of you know, and as Brad mentioned, we're in a more tight labor market. And so the availability of just workers in general has been a challenge. But again, I'm sure we'll get to it about the way now things are starting to shift moving into the next year with the state budget and potentially unemployment rising. We're going to be adapting to those evolving circumstances as well.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So how are you adapting? What are the things that are going to be, what are you working on to solve those problems for the future?
There was a real emphasis on investing in areas where that there could be long-term gains and sustained progress with respect to workforce development. One additional thing I'll just mention that's unique to California, and we're very fortunate again for the governor and the legislature's efforts on this, is that normally the workforce system really relies heavily on the federal funding. California is unique that the state actually directly invests over $1 billion of state general fund money into the workforce system. And so I'm very grateful that under this administration, Governor Newsom, not just to serve in this capacity, which is obviously an honor being based here in the Inland Empire, but also to see the actual outcomes, not just the leadership and representation, but the outcomes. We have a signature program that's nationally recognized. Our U.S. Secretary of Labor even came out and recognized this in the White House. High road training partnerships, I spoke a little bit about it, how we handled it during the pandemic, but we now have grown this program to basically over $500 million statewide. And prior to this administration, the Inland Empire had not even received $1 of these funds. And why do these funds matter? High road training partnerships has to do with job quality. And so instead of it just being a nice thing to say, we've actually made this as basically a non-negotiable standard for all of our state discretionary funds. And so we use the term we use to describe this as high road. That's what I mean by that when I say high road. So from this program, as I mentioned, prior to this administration, this region never even received $1. Since this administration, our region has disproportionately received more funds than any region in the state, basically. And so we funded transportation, infrastructure investments with partnership with the building trades and Teamsters, San Bernardino Community College District and others. And again, these are 2 county efforts. That's related to logistics and transportation. And again, high road. We're not talking about just, right off the bat jobs. Another area we've invested is high road construction careers. So there's a lot of transportation infrastructure money, both from the federal government, the state that's come down. The Inland Empire has received a very significant amount across both counties, again, all related to construction trades. And these have also had a focus written into our conditions of getting more women, getting formerly incarcerated, getting people these opportunities that otherwise wouldn't have it. Because these are jobs where you can raise an entire family off one income. Another investment we did, again in this region, high road for water industry. Water industry is very high quality jobs, and it's it's an aging workforce that's retiring. And so again, unique, the only 2 regions in the state we funded was Bay Area and Inland Empire. Again, how often do you see that kind of combination? And then cybersecurity is another area specific, unique only to the Inland Empire that we did. And again, I can go on, but the point I'm making is this region is really being heard very well by the governor's administration.
All right, thank you. I want to shift gears a little bit in terms of working with educational institutions. So one of the things that we're trying to work on is connect our businesses with our educational institutions, connecting people who are going to be entering in the workforce with actual careers, future job opportunities. How do you see our educational institutions and businesses working together to solve these workforce shortages long term?
We basically focus on youth that have fallen out of this traditional school system and getting them opportunities, and it's really focused on career, technical, educational, vocational. And I personally, being a school board member, think there needs to be more expanded focus for all students to getting these opportunities, not just focusing on people who have dropped out of school. But that's really one area that you can plug in. Another area is more just about internships and employment opportunities. So a lot of people like to focus on the unemployment rate, and again, it is historically low. But another area that really we should be paying attention to is the labor force participation rate. Brad mentioned about that San Bernardino County has a historic level relative to its past, over 1 million people now. But this needs to expand. What is the labor force participation rate? What it means is people who are eligible to work and are actually seeking work. And so during the pandemic, this declined, and a lot of it, disproportionately was on the shoulders of women. And if you want, I can elaborate more on what I mean by that. But that has been a huge ripple effect that's still being felt in the region and broadly throughout the country. And so getting more people interested in getting back to work, the 2 key areas that there's potential is young people and the senior citizens. And so I can elaborate further if you want on it, unless you wanted me to get it. Okay. So I just want to make sure I'm not going too much in a direction that you guys aren't interested in. So on the youth side, we know that anecdotally, the concerns people here is that the discipline, the accountability, the work ethic. These are, some of it I think is a little bit exaggerated and unfounded, but you can imagine with a pandemic where people at one point were even having to go to virtual learning, that the access to employment opportunities is severely been curtailed, right? And so even generally speaking, young people need more work experience, right? Regardless of the pandemic. Post-pandemic, people missed out because getting a virtual first employment opportunity is obviously not the same thing as what people need. And so this presents also an opportunity that the employers are more incentivized to be looking at a broader subset of populations on where can we find workers. And so we're hoping that this is an area where we can, by us investing, and the state has been investing significantly on summer work experience opportunities, again, up and down the state, specifically focusing on youth. And we're hoping that this can not only increase the labor force participation rate, but help address some of these shortfalls that employers are facing now. On the senior citizen side, I can speak into that too. This is another interesting area that people, the baby boomer generation, generally speaking, again, I'm making broad characterizations, have stayed in the workforce longer than any other generation in the history of this country. And some of it is because of circumstances, feeling a need to keep working, and others is just because people want it to keep working in jobs that they like to do. And we want to be supportive of that. The area of challenge is that the pandemic, again, created a disruption where people abruptly started leaving the workforce. And again, that has started affecting the labor force participation rate. We really want to put a lot of emphasis on what can we do to supporting baby boomer generation that want to go back into the workforce again. Being supportive of that, again, that can increase our labor force participation rate, their experience, their perspectives generationally has a huge asset to play. But again, this is a broader discussion because that involves the quality of healthcare and the dignity of how people can retire when they want to, and the quality of life that they can have. So that's a whole another discussion as well.
Good. And then how important is innovation entrepreneurship in your work? Are there things that we can do to develop and inspire more entrepreneurial opportunities in our community through the work that you're doing?
I really think our America Job Centers need to be working more in coordination with Small Business Administration and incubators, accelerators. I helped co-found a tech incubator accelerator in downtown Riverside, for example, partnering up with the universities and so forth, that when people are looking for employment opportunities, sometimes the best employment opportunity is to start your own job, start your own business and be your own employer. And I just feel like for a country that justifiably we pride ourselves on entrepreneurship as part of the American economic exceptionalism of this country, the lack of focus on how the workforce system could be a catalyst for spurring more job creation, entrepreneurship, innovation, I think is a real big opportunity. And so I really encourage, for those of you that want to engage on those things, coordinate these partnerships between SBA, the chambers, the universities, I know Cal Baptist is here and others, and our America Job Centers. I think there's really a lot of potential there to connect all those dots.
Excellent. Then a few months ago, Renee and I attended a conference together, and we had the California Labor Secretary, Natalie Pellucci, thank you, said that there's going to be billions of dollars that were going to be coming towards workforce development, better jobs initiatives. The federal government was also contributing significant funds in that endeavor. What does our community and our business community need to know about that moving forward? Do you have any advice for us?
The executive who runs the Labor Workforce Agency is Secretary of Labor Natalie Pellucci. She's the first Latina in history of California to have that role, so that's a historic achievement. But she's highly experienced a person and a real dedicated to this work. In terms of how to really make sure to harness these potential investments and funds beyond the things that I mentioned, I think the most immediate opportunity is what the acronym is SURF, Community Economic Resiliency Fund. Jackie Melendez is here from IEGO. She's raising her hand there. So she is leading that initiative. I'm very delighted to hear after speaking with her that the Inland Empire just came to a mediation on its proposal. So let me explain what this is. Every region self-identifying have access to $5 million of planning funds. And the planning funds, which is a lot actually, just to have for planning purposes. But the idea is, let's identify as a region where would investments that are coming down from the federal state, how could it be most transformational for our specific needs? We need to figure that out. That's not for Sacramento or DC to figure out. That's for us to figure out. That's the basis of SURF, and specifically for our region, it's IEGO that is coordinating that effort as a co-convener with the Inland Empire Labor Institute. And so I highly encourage. I'm assuming you guys are already part of. Yeah, you guys are already engaged. So through Zeb and the Chino Valley Chamber. And through Bobby and the Corona Chamber and everybody involved, you guys can plug in that way. But that's how you can have a voice in this. They will continually be on the pulse of wherever these opportunities align. So I'll leave it at that.
How do you envision that working? How does that ecosystem work? How do you envision these different entities working together?
The best way to engage with our system is through your county workforce boards and through the county staff. They're from your communities and they're responsive to those communities. But also, again, I just want to emphasize, the system really emphasizes local control. So I really feel the role as a convener, as kind of a hub of being able to facilitate opportunities. Our aspiration is that's a really powerful role that those county workforce boards can play.
Perfect. And then, Chambers of Commerce, right? So we represent our small business community. How do you envision Chambers of Commerce as working along in trying to help solve our workforce shortage challenges?
So, as I mentioned in the beginning, it's a rare thing when you hear about a government system and a program that is led by the business community and governed majority by the business community. And so the fact that the chamber is the voice of the business community, and especially the small business community, because we all know that's the backbone of this country and our communities. You guys have an extraordinary huge voice to play in this process. And so for us, we need to be on the pulse of really what's going on the ground, how our system can be responsive. And for me, even beyond just workforce, how can Governor Gavin Newsom's administration be on the pulse and hear what's happening and be responsive? So I think that is of great value, and it's again fundamentally embedded into our system.
Awesome, and then I want to expand on that a little bit. So recently we've developed our Upskill Chino Valley program, which is focusing on 4 different things. It's workforce development, it's leadership development, it's entrepreneurship development, and it's economic development. What advice do you have for the chamber or businesses when we're looking to tackle these initiatives to help build a stronger workforce and build for our businesses? Any advice you have for us in tackling that Upskill Chino Valley program?
Really to coordinate regional efforts. And so, the county workforce can certainly be helpful in that. But I am really heartened to see that, to see the Corona Chamber here, the more that we really coordinate on a regional basis, because all those things that you mentioned, there's no fixed boundaries. A business based in one city is serving people across the cities or the counties. And the more that we coordinate it regionally, one, you build capacity to support those things, and then second, you're also providing greater value to the end people, which is the businesses and the employers and everything. So I know it's a cliche, but the regional emphasis, I think, can really make a difference.
Good, and that's brings us to another question. Is we talk about building collaboratives regionally or getting people to work together. So how important is, because we have some of our municipalities represented here, local organizations, our businesses. How important is it for us to work together to work on solving these challenges?
I'll say this on a personal note about why I even got involved in workforce, growing up in the Inland Empire. Because I grew up in poverty. My mom worked at an assembly line, raising my two younger sisters and I. And she actually used workforce services to get those job placements. And so for me, it's really coming full circle to see, to be in the role that I'm now on this. But in terms of why it matters, because you can break cycles of poverty. This is, again, this is to me the fabric of what this country is all about, is access to opportunity, and people can do that through workforce development. I think it's a very powerful platform of what's possible, but the key is that what are the standards that we're setting for ourselves on what the impact that we're having for communities, for families, for employers, and so forth, and what can we do collectively to respond to those challenges? Because again, if we're looking outward about the trends of what's happening with the Fed continually raising interest rates and how that's likely going to drive increase in unemployment, and the state budget facing a big budget deficit potentially. All of these things, at the end of the day, there's going to be people that we know, people in this room, that are all going to be disproportionately impacted by these things. And so that's why we do these things, is to be there for them, to be there for us, and to be there for the communities.
Perfect. And then we do have, representing businesses in the business owner room. What advice do we have for businesses that are struggling to find workers, facing those challenges? What advice would you give those businesses, and how are you guys helping to solve the immediate needs of their business to find people? All
those services that Brad outlined, these have real value for businesses, but people need to know about them. And even if you know about them, and you might think, I'm not sure if that's something that immediately works, or that maybe that would be nice, but I don't want to have to deal with a bunch of paperwork and bureaucracy to access those things. If you're any of those camps, I strongly, again, encourage you, engage with the system. You'll be amazed at the level of concierge service involved, and how they really make it convenient in terms of the paperwork and all those kinds of things. Give it a chance. And again, if there's areas of improvement, let us know, because that's the role of our board, is to make it accountable and to be responsive. But I really want to urge people to get past the cynicism or apathy and just engage, period.
And then what are some of the key issues or priorities moving forward? So into 2023 and beyond, what are some things that we might be aware of when it comes to the future of what this looks like?
I think part of it is just making sure that we're actually fully harnessing the potential of what's already being out there, because it's actually very significant. And to me, again, these circumstances, whether it's the pandemic, or potentially unemployment might have to go up again, or whatever the circumstances are, these are opportunities to engage people that otherwise haven't been engaged in the system. And again, we've had people formerly incarcerated getting their lives back together, and we've seen it, their stories, speaking at these graduations from these training programs, these higher training partnerships. And seeing young people who were expelled from school system, getting back on their feet, getting their GED, and getting gainfully employed in again, high quality apprenticeship jobs. That to me is a great potential, and that's right here and there. There's investments right now from those programs I mentioned where we're actively looking for people to fill those places.
All right, excellent. And then that kind of concludes my round of questioning, but is there anything that you would like to close off with or finish out with?
Just know that I'm extremely grateful and humbled to be a part of this community, the Inland Empire, about all the work that you guys do, and I'm very grateful for all of your guys' roles and efforts in making everything happen. Thank you.